Hey everybody, this is Blue. So I saw that they're doing Dragon Week this week, and I thought, well, I'm going to contribute there. Um, and my concept is the concrete dragon golems. Now, these are not fantasy-wise real dragons; they're fake dragons. But the story about how I got here, I think is kind of fun. So let's have some fun. So last weekend, I went to the Ames Renaissance Fair. Um, Ames is home of the Iowa State Cyclones. Most of you will know them through their football program. And it was a decent show. The events that they had there that were created by the host group were good shows. They had sword fighting, jesters, fire eating, dancing, music. They had a pretty good show. I did not like the Ren Fair because of everything else. The vendors kind of sucked, and the people. The people really sucked. With this being a college town, there are a lot of role players, and so this became more of a cosplay event than a Ren Fair. And I've been wanting to complain about that for a while, so yeah, I'm going to complain about it. So here I am in my outfit. I am Scotch Irish German, and so I have a kilt on, and that was my garb for the event. But this is where one of the problems was. If you see the two ladies in the middle, they got elf ears on them. Frickin' elf ears. This is a Ren Fair, Renaissance time period, not a fantasy thing. This was more of a fantasy cosplay event than it was a Ren Fair. And there were even people there with horns attached to their faces, because they wanted to be tieflings. It took away from the event. I enjoyed the sword fighting and all that, and they had one comedian that was really good. But the vendors sucked as well. Let me go to the next slide here. These are the dragons I am mostly interested in, and I have all but like 2 or 3 of them already, so I didn't buy anything from them. But these are the dragons I want to collect, and I wish I would have saw some new ones there, but like I said, they only had a couple there that I didn't have because I didn't want them because they're a little weird. But most of the other vendors, they had these mass-produced 3D dragons. These things right here. And there were probably 6 vendors selling these crappy things. And I guess I thought they were interesting at first, but after like the 4th tent at the vendors, it's like, gosh damn it. And I started to hate them. And so I only bought one of them because it was kind of, to me, unique still. But they are all basically the same style. And, we were having people selling them. They're going, well, this is a 400% mock-up of this style. It was a good size thing, but it took away from it. I just didn't like it. And then they had some small ones, all different colors, kind of like what this image is showing here. And, it became this super mass-produced thing that took away from it. There was one tent, it was probably a 30 by 30 tent, and that's all the person was selling was 3D created fantasy items. Like I was saying, this was more of a D&D thing than a Ren Fair. there were vendors selling 3D printed dice towers, dice boxes, and all that. There were D&D this, D&D that at a lot of vendors. And so it took away from it because, you know, a Ren Fair is a Ren Fair and cosplay is something else. But they had it so mixed that it just took away from it. So anyway, I saw this and I decided I was going to incorporate this concept into my game. Like I said, I bought one. And, you know, after you've seen so many of them, it just goes, these are just hunks of plastic. This is not as interesting. It's not as cool. This is a waste of money. I like dragons like this. This is my favorite dragon. This is the actual Blue Sage dragon. And I just loved it because it has a personality. It has emotion to it. This is mass-produced plant. Even my Beanie Baby dragon has personality compared to these mass-produced plastic things. And so I decided like I said, I was going to incorporate this into my game. But how? I wanted to make fake dragons. And so I was remembering the video I watched by Dungeon Dad. You know, he did those Monsters of the Week things, and he had the pottery turtle golem. So that, it, you know, the back you could put in all these plants, and you could have a walking druid tank type thing. I thought that was cool. And so then it hit me. A golem dragon. Because golems, if you remember right, are based off the Jewish concept of golem, which is just made out of earth and clay. And so you can have in your fantasy world dragon-like golems created out of pottery and other ingredients. Not really stone, because that would take you know, a long time to to cut it down and to get in the right proportions. But if you were to have molds like plaster Paris or cement, you could mass produce dragon golems. And so I just thought that's perfect. So you can have a group of, like, a mage guild, get together with a mason's guild or a crafting guild, and they could mass produce these body parts for a dragon and then assemble them together with like a very special strong rope, whatever. They got, magical ropes, and then they could perform magic and create an artificial dragon, a dragon golem. And if they use clay and concrete, they could get that pretty easily, and they could mass produce. They could almost do like 1 or 2 a day. And so I just thought that was perfect. And so I've been working on that. And so with a concrete dragon, their mages could take magic items and implant them into the cement while it's still wet, and then let it dry, and then they could have a golem dragon golem, with abilities that simulate a real dragon. So you could have a small dragon and put a daily spell item, a rod, into the mouth that could cast 3 fire bolts a day, or 1, heck. And there you would have a dragon that can copy the abilities of real dragons. It doesn't have to be fire. You can make it an acid, water, wind, you know. So you can imitate all types of dragons. Um, you could put magic items into the wings, runes into the wings, so that it can copy flight. So you can have a flying stone dragon that can do various tasks. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. Let me get to my notes here. Because cement, you know, can cast pretty quickly. Like I said, they can make 1 or 2 a day, and because then they can mass produce them, they could sell them. So you could have this guild that makes these concrete dragon golems and sell them to other groups or nations even. You can have different sizes to fulfill different roles. You could thus, you know, like use clay and make a very small dragon or golem, and you could have it be a spy. It flies around, you know, checking out the area, and you know, with it being magical, you can then look through its eyes and hear what it hears, and so you can have it be a reconnaissance, a spy to use. You can make this thing huge, and you know, it might not need to fly, it might just need to walk. Could you imagine having a castle with 2 large earth simulating concrete dragon golems, and when the enemy comes to lay siege, all of a sudden from underneath the dirt comes 2 of these large monstrosities and just walks through the enemy? I think that would be something cool to have. And the great thing about these is you can add additional armor to them. So let's say you have an earth-based, you know, wingless dragon golem. You could put some armor in certain areas, and you could thus make it even stronger, able to take more damage. So I should go a little bit back into the creation. So they would be able to like make 10 parts, and they would use a rope or some type of frame to connect all the pieces. And then they would take a pitch, you know, like a tar or any other a substance that can be flexible and strong, and put it on all the parts to connect them. This would seal the golem into one piece, which would make it better to fly and to be underwater. It would protect the magical items. You can have the pitch substance be magically strong, resistant to something. You could have it where the skin is resistant to a certain magic. And so you could make it stronger then. And because these are mass produced, you could have it where each guild or country or group that it's built for have a unique color, and they could put their emblem on it. So you could have a grayish, blackish concrete dragon golem that has black paint on it, and have a couple yellowish runes on it to identify it. And there you go. And you can use it for various tasks. Like I said, if it's a small one, you can have it as a spy, and bigger ones could be for just for fighting. Don't need wings. Some might have wings. You could even have it where you can get a medium-sized one and put like a saddle on it, and you could have dragon riders on these artificial dragons, the dragon golems, for combat. And I thought that would be awesome as well. The best reason to put these into your game is if you have a high magic game like I do, because the mages could use these to work with them to keep real dragons in check. Maybe you have found an area where there's full of black dragons, which are usually considered dark and evil, and you could have a mage group come up with like 10 or 15 of these artificial dragon golems and keep them at bay. You could even possibly fight back and get rid of the threat, because the mages could use their magics plus the abilities of these artificial dragon golems to fight back and defeat the dragons. Cool. Then there's the other part of it. You can have mage groups use them to intimidate villages. Blackmail. I will not send my dragons to your village as long as you pay me, 50 gold pieces, a month or whatever. And that would be an interesting storyline, because then your heroes, your PC group, might be forced to go out and find the dragon and destroy all of its artificial fake dragons. So there are many ways to put it in. You can make these any level, any various sizes means various strengths. So you could have the small one that's really weak. It wouldn't take much, take more than just a couple of arrows. Arrows would probably do nothing to it. You would need to be able to get close with a club and some heavy weapons to destroy these dragons. And the bigger they are, you can make them huge, powerful. You could even, if you were wanting to stretch it to the limits, create something like a Leviathan, something that is beyond huge, that they secretly build into this large cave system and then slowly move it out. So I'm using Roll Master Standards here. You can have a group of 5 level 6 warriors, with their hammers and all that, which would be good to fight these dragon golems. But out of this cave comes this large, humongous dragon, and it's like level 200, and it's just too much for a small group. You would need an army with other dragons, other magical abilities to fight it. So that would be an epic battle. You could have your ultimate evil in your campaigns actually use a dragon golem in their battle. That could be their steed, their mount. And so you have to fight the magic of the beast, of the construct, not construct, golem, plus the abilities of the big bad at the same time. And that would make for an impressive battle. So that is my idea of the good old, well, not good old, but my concept of the concrete dragon golems. You can mass produce them, and they could really change the balance of an area, which could be good and bad at the same time. So tell me what you think of the concept of a concrete dragon golem, and take care. Be at peace.